They forgot to give us the manual for growing old. So we wrote one ourselves. Hello, dear one. Welcome. By the time you hit your 60s, or as I like to call it, Act 3 with creaky sound effects, you start to notice that the world doesn't clap for you just for showing up anymore. People stop asking for your opinion unless it's about casserole, and somehow your doctor becomes the most active relationship in your life. Now here's the kicker. Nobody gave you a guidebook for this stage. There's no syllabus for how to grow old without becoming bitter broke or babysitting. So today, we're going to fix that. These are not just tips. They are survival tools. Not the kind that tell you how to climb Mount Everest. No, the kind that help you get through Tuesday without yelling at your adult children or lending someone your funeral fund. You'll hear the wisdom of a retired Harvard professor. But we're going to go a little deeper into Buddhist teachings, elder psychology, and a few stories so real they might just make you laugh, cry, or finally cancel that guilt trip you keep packing for. So take a breath, loosen your waistband, and let's begin the conversation. Nobody had with you, but you always deserved. Because old age isn't a decline. It's the punchline. Part 1. Don't tell them everything, especially about your savings. Let me start with something that sounds harsh, but I say it with love and just the right amount of suspicion. Stop telling your kids everything about your bank account. I know you raised them. You cut the crust off their sandwiches. You probably still think of them as sweet babies with pudding in their hair. But here's the truth, those babies are grown now, and some of them are one divorce or bad investment away from seeing your life savings as their emotional support piggy bank. You may think you're creating trust, but what you're actually doing is creating opportunity for confusion, resentment, and drama. Families don't fall apart when people die. They fall apart over what's left behind. Buddhist wisdom teaches us about the danger of grasping how attachment creates suffering. Well, attachment doesn't just mean clinging to youth or your old photo albums. It also means clinging to control through money. There's a story of a retired school principal in Oregon. We'll call him Harold. He told his adult children exactly how much he had in savings, down to the last cent. At first, they were just curious, but 6 months later, one was asking for help with a down payment. Another wanted a small loan to launch an organic dog biscuit startup. And suddenly, Harold was surrounded not by family, but by silent expectations. Now, Harold wasn't naive, but he did confuse love with financial transparency. And the fallout, his kids resented each other. One called him selfish for not giving more. The other stopped visiting unless there was a money talk. And Harold, he just wanted to enjoy a guilt-free root beer float without fielding Venmo requests. The Buddhist concept of right speech applies here. Sometimes silence is a kindness. You're not withholding. You're protecting the peace, your peace and theirs. Let them know you're fine. Let them know you've planned ahead. But do not, I repeat, do not turn your retirement into an open spreadsheet. And if anyone makes you feel guilty for not trusting them, tell them this: I trust you to love me. I just don't trust you to manage my brokerage account while emotionally unraveling during a custody battle. And that's fair. Now, if you're thinking, but what if I want to give while I'm alive to see the joy beautiful? Give freely if it brings you joy, but give without attachment to outcomes, and never in a way that compromises your dignity or your emergency funds. Because let me tell you, generosity without boundaries is just slow financial self-harm. So dear friend, keep your passwords private, keep your financial planner on speed dial. And keep in mind, if they only love you when you're giving it, might be time to give yourself a raise instead. And one final note, love doesn't come with an invoice. And your peace of mind. That's the inheritance they'll appreciate the most if they're wise enough to see it. Part 2. Why visiting your kids should be like sushi. Small portions. Beautiful presentation. Now I know what you're thinking, but I miss them. I just want to feel needed. And besides, they said I could stay as long as I like. Let me gently suggest something from the ancient Buddhist tradition and from the mouth of my friend's daughter after day 3 of Grandma's visit. Even enlightenment gets annoying if it keeps rearranging your fridge. Here's the truth. After 60, the guest room becomes a psychological landmine. Stay too little and you're distant. Stay too long and you're emotionally squatting. Modern elder psychology has a term for this boundary fatigue. It's when the warmth of family slowly morphs into quiet resentment. Nobody says anything at first, but the smiles tighten, the hugs get shorter, and suddenly you're hearing phrases like, "We're just really busy right now," or "Let's do dinner next time." There's a Buddhist phrase, "Hot tea burns the tongue. Cold tea insults the host. The wise one sips while it's warm. You are the tea. Don't overbrew." Let me tell you about Bernice, age 76, who visited her daughter in Austin just for a week. 2 weeks later, the daughter started scheduling back-to-back Zoom meetings in the kitchen. The son-in-law started taking long walks at suspiciously convenient times, and the grandkids, normally affectionate, began retreating to their headphones like soldiers dodging landmines. Bernice had unknowingly become the houseplant no one watered, but felt guilty about moving. And yet, Bernice was a kind woman. She helped with laundry, cooked dinner, even bought groceries. So, what went wrong? She lingered. Buddhism teaches impermanence. Everything is more beautiful because it doesn't last. Even love, even a warm visit, especially a warm visit. So here's the new rule, 3 days. Max day 1. You're welcomed, like royalty. Day 2, you're still a novelty. Day 3, you're part of the furniture. And someone's back hurts from trying to be polite. It's not because they don't love you. It's because space is sacred, especially in a busy household. Give your kids the gift of missing you. Let them look forward to your visits instead of recovering from them. And let's be honest, after 3 days, your routines start crying for mercy. You're not sleeping in your bed. Your toothpaste is in a travel pouch. And if you have to hear your son-in-law explain cryptocurrency one more time, you'll begin praying for divine intervention or a stiff drink. So do it like sushi. Small portions, beautiful presentation, then bow and exit with grace. And when they say stay longer, smile kindly and reply, "I would, but I want to leave while you still love me." That, my friend, is elder wisdom. Part 3. Grandparent or free babysitter? Know the difference. Let's address one of the most quietly exhausting roles a senior can fall into, the grandparent who never leaves the kitchen. Somewhere between, "Can you help out a little and we couldn't have done this without you?" Many elders find themselves trapped in a never-ending episode of unpaid childcare, playing sidekick to small humans who are far more energetic and far less grateful than the ones they raised decades ago. Now, don't get me wrong, grandchildren are delightful. Sometimes in small doses, preferably when they're asleep. But here's what no one tells you. Love doesn't require labor. You don't have to prove your love by being a live-in nanny. You don't have to chase toddlers while your knees whisper, "We used to be cartilage, now we're just ambition." Let me tell you about Edward, retired at 68, healthy, still witty. He offered to help his daughter for a little while after she had twins. 3 years later, he knew the plot lines of every episode of Cocomelon, hadn't touched his paintbrushes since 2020, and had developed a strange shoulder twitch every time he heard the word snack. Edward wasn't a grandfather anymore. He was a full-time staff member with no salary, no pension, and no union. Buddhist psychology has a phrase for this idiot compassion. It means doing good things for others that quietly harm yourself. It's when your giving becomes a leash and you're too kind to chew through the rope. Your time is sacred. Your energy is finite. You spent decades working, parenting, surviving these years. These are for slow mornings, warm drinks, maybe a little jazz and joy that doesn't involve diaper changes. That doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love without sacrificing your soul to prove it. Want to spend time with the grandkids? Beautiful. Invite them over for a day, bake cookies, take photos, then send them home. with sugar, lots of it. That's how you establish both presence and boundaries. Because the truth is, when you give beyond your limits, you're not just drained, you become resentful. And that resentment leaks into your voice, into your body, into your relationship with the very people you wanted to support. There's a Buddhist parable. A man carries water for the whole village but refuses to drink. One day, he collapses. The village mourns the water carrier, but no one knew how to carry the buckets. Teach your children to carry their own buckets, and remind yourself, your worth is not measured in hours spent babysitting. It's measured in presence, in joy, in boundaries that keep your spirit upright. So the next time someone says, "Can you just watch them for a bit?" Smile, breathe, and respond. Only if I get overtime, pay spiritual credit, and a nap. Part 4. If you must help, don't be the hero. Be the librarian. Let's be honest. Most of us who've lived past 60 have what I call the fixer disease. We see a mess, emotional, financial, romantic, existential, and something in us leaps up like an over-caffeinated Labrador. I can help, I've lived through worse. I have a laminated folder. And then we start solving. But here's the trap. You become the hero of a story that wasn't yours to begin with. Now, Buddhism teaches something called right action. It's the idea that doing good isn't always about doing something. It's about doing what's actually wise, not just what feels urgent. Which brings us to this truth. After 60, your job is not to be the hero. Your job is to become the librarian. Let me explain. Heroes jump in. They wrestle the dragon, fix the plumbing, mediate the divorce, and hand out unsolicited advice, like they're Oprah with opinions. Librarians. They wait at the desk. They don't chase people through the aisles screaming, "You need this book." No, they sit in silence, offer knowledge when it's requested, and gently remind you to bring it back on time. Maybe with a cup of tea. Take Marlene. She was a retired therapist. Her grown daughter kept getting into doomed relationships with musicians who just needed time to mature. Marlene, bless her, kept giving advice, making budgets, even drafting breakup texts. It never worked. Ever. Finally, Marlene stopped. She didn't cut her daughter off. She just stopped intervening. Unless asked. She became the librarian. "I'm here," she'd say, "Section 3. Top shelf when you're ready." That small shift. It saved their relationship. Because when you rescue people who aren't ready, you don't actually rescue them. You rob them of the moment they figure it out on their own. Psychologists call this disempowering compassion. You help so much they forget how strong they are. And you end up tired, bitter, and silently hoping they fail just so you can say, "I told you so," which spiritually speaking is like eating expired karma on toast. So how do you help without drowning? Be available, not invasive. Share wisdom, not solutions. Offer presence, not pressure. When they're ready to grow, they'll remember you sat quietly beside them. Not that you showed up with a PowerPoint and a hammer. You've already done your time in the arena. Now it's your season to sit with your books, sip something warm, and hand out guidance like overdue wisdom slips if they come looking. And if they don't, that's okay too. Some people don't want help. Ram Dass once said, they want witnesses. So become a witness. A loving one. A silent one. A slightly amused one with a really cozy chair. Because at this age, your piece is your masterpiece. Don't trade it for a cape. Part 5. Sleep is enlightenment in pajamas. Stop treating it like a luxury. Let's clear something up right away. You are not lazy for needing a nap. You're just spiritually advanced. In fact, the Buddha himself would probably tell you to lie down, close your eyes, and stop trying to fix things that don't exist outside your mind. He called it right, rest. Okay, maybe I called it that, but I think he'd approve. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever stayed up tossing and turning, rehearsing conversations that never happened? Inventing scenarios that definitely won't? And arguing with your dead uncle in your head about an inheritance from 1997? Congratulations! You've just completed an 8-hour marathon of Mind Theatre, the late night edition. Starring you your regrets and an overactive bladder, elderly psychology has a term for this ruminative insomnia, the inability to sleep because your thoughts keep spiraling, like they're auditioning for a role in a tragedy that's long over. But here's the kicker. Sleep is not a side quest, it's the main storyline now. Science backs this up. Seniors who consistently sleep less than 6 hours a night, higher risk of memory loss, heart issues, mood swings, and ironically feeling too tired to sleep. There's a Zen saying, when hungry eat, when tired rest. Not. When tired scroll the news, rethink every mistake since 1982. Then take melatonin and hope for the best. Take George. He was 81, sharp as a tack but always exhausted. He'd call it just getting older. Turns out he was staying up till 1 a.m. every night watching cable news and worrying about global politics he had zero control over. His doctor told him, George, the world will still be broken in the morning. You don't need to supervise. So George made one small change. He shut everything down after dinner, lit a candle, put on old jazz records and read a book about bonsai trees. Within weeks, his blood pressure improved. His memory sharpened and his resting grumpiness dropped by 40%. He didn't need more medication, he needed more surrender. Buddhist practice reminds us that rest is sacred. Not just sleep, but letting go. Letting go of control, of vigilance, of being useful, even when no one's asking. So here's your new bedtime ritual. Turn off the noise. Light a soft lamp or just sit in silence. Place one hand on your heart, the other on your belly, and whisper gently, you've done enough today. Rest, old friend. The universe can carry itself tonight. And if the thoughts still come, smile at them. Then tell them to come back tomorrow with an appointment. Because you, my dear, are no longer required to stay awake to earn your place here. You've earned it. Now, put on your coziest pajamas and slip into the nearest version of enlightenment, a good night's sleep. Part 6. Burn these 3 things before you die. Metaphorically, let me offer you a little spiritual housekeeping advice. Before you leave this world, and I don't mean next week, I mean whenever your ride arrives with the cosmic Uber, you should burn 3 things. Not literally. That's how you lose your deposit and get a visit from the fire department. But spiritually. Oh yes, these things need to go. With fire, cleansing, freeing, glorious inner fire, burn. 1, your old identity. You're not who you used to be. You are not the boss, the caretaker, the fixer, the one everyone depended on. You're also not your career title from 1983. No one at the grocery store cares that you were once regional vice president of paperclip distribution. And that's a good thing, because who you were is just one chapter. You're the whole book now. Take Eleanor. She spent 40 years as a lawyer. Wore black suits, spoke like a closing argument. After retirement, she still walked, like she was in a courtroom. One day, her 7-year-old granddaughter asked, "Why do you dress like you're going to fight someone?" Eleanor went home, donated her suits, bought 3 scarves and a pair of red shoes. Now she paints. She says fewer words. And when she does speak, she smiles more because she's finally not performing. Burn the mask. Keep the soul. Burn. 2. Your guilt. Oh, the heavy ghost of should have, could have, wish I didn't. Buddhism teaches that guilt is just clinging to a version of yourself that no longer exists. But here's the truth. You did the best you could with what you knew, with the energy you had, with the heart you were protecting. If you knew better, you'd have done better. And if you didn't, you were still learning. Even now, you're still learning. Burn the tape you keep replaying. Then make some tea and sit with yourself not as a critic, but as a companion. Burn 3. Your need to be right. You've survived heartbreak, hip pain, and a lifetime of disappointments. You don't need to win arguments anymore. You don't need to correct your son-in-law about how to load the dishwasher. You don't need to tell your niece her tattoo is grammatically incorrect in Sanskrit, and you certainly don't need to repost articles to prove a point on Facebook. You know what feels better than being right peace. Being right is temporary. Being free lasts longer. Buddhist rituals often include a fire ceremony, where people write down what they want to let go of, and then burn it to ashes, watching the smoke carry their burdens upward. So I ask you, what old version of you is ready to be shed? What guilt have you hugged for too long? What argument is still echoing in your head, decades past its expiration date? Let it go. Light a candle if you must, or just close your eyes and imagine it burning while you exhale what no longer serves you. Because the truth is, you can't take any of it with you, and you were never meant to. Part 7. Stop saving for someday. Someday is nervously checking its watch. Let me ask you something direct. How much longer are you going to wait to open the good wine, wear the expensive sweater, or eat the damn cake? You've been saving things for someday for so long. Even someday is starting to feel neglected. It's sitting in the corner, arms crossed, whispering, "I'm not even sure I'm invited anymore." Listen carefully. There is no grand arrival, no official notice that says, "Now it's time to enjoy your life." That notice, it's this moment, this breath, this very strange and beautiful day where nothing is promised, and yet here you are. Buddhism calls it anicca impermanence. Nothing lasts, not the pain, not the joy, and not your perfectly folded napkins you've been saving for a dinner party that may never come. Let me tell you about Joe. He was 84, widowed, frugal, always dreamed of going to Paris. He had the money, he had the time, but he kept saying, maybe next year. Then one day he fell. Nothing dramatic, just a misstep in the garden. Hip shattered, Paris gone. So his daughter printed out a photo of the Eiffel Tower and taped it to the hospital window. And Joe, God bless him, just laughed and said, "Next time I won't wait for permission." Let that sink in. He didn't run out of money, he ran out of movement. We don't talk about this enough, the tragic comedy of it all, that we save and delay and sacrifice, only to find that our knees gave up before our dreams did. So please wear the nice thing, order the dessert, plan the trip, even if it's a small one. Call the person, take the photo. Say the thing you've been holding in your chest since 1992. Joy isn't selfish, it's spiritual survival. And no, you're not too old. That's a myth sold by people who want you to be quiet and convenient. But joy is inconvenient. Joy is loud. Joy wears leopard print and doesn't apologize. So stop waiting for someday, because someday has a limited shelf life. And it's getting nervous that you'll never call it back. Part 8. Never outsource your joy. It's a job only you can fill. Here's a truth. Most people won't say out loud. So let me do the honors. Your happiness is not your children's job. It's not your partner's job, your old friend's job, or your dog's job, although dogs are suspiciously good at it. After 60, a strange thing happens. We start waiting for someone to visit, to call, to remember, to invite us. And while waiting, we quietly hand over our joy, like a forgotten bag at a bus stop, hoping someone will pick it up and bring it back with a smile. But here's the spiritual plot twist. No one's coming, not because they don't love you, but because they're also knee-deep in their own lives, anxieties, mortgages, TikToks, and therapy appointments. So you've got two choices: feel abandoned or reclaim your joy as your sacred solo project. In Buddhism, there's a word, mudita. It means sympathetic joy, being happy for others. But here's the catch. You can't be happy for others if you've forgotten how to be happy with yourself. Let me tell you about Sylvia. She turned 79. No one remembered her birthday. Her kids texted 2 days later. But instead of sulking, she baked herself a chocolate cake, stuck a candle in it, wore a feathered hat, and sang happy birthday in 3 languages badly. When her neighbor asked if she was sad, she said, "Why, I'm the only one who got my wish exactly right." That's the kind of elder wisdom that changes rooms. Joy, when it's self-generated, becomes a radiant, ridiculous, rebellious thing. It's not polite. It doesn't need approval. It dances to music you can't hear and laughs at jokes no one else gets. And that kind of joy, it heals, it attracts, it inspires. You've given enough. You've held enough. You've sacrificed more than most people will ever understand. So now it's time to light the incense. Make the tea exactly how you like it. Wear something that feels like freedom and ask yourself, what would make me quietly, deeply, stupidly happy today? Then do it. Not for Instagram, not for legacy, not for anyone else's admiration. Just for you. Because joy that belongs only to you is the one thing no one can steal. And at this age, that's a kind of wealth far richer than anything you can hold in a savings account. So here we are, dear. 1. 8 simple truths, not commandments, not warnings, just small lanterns for the winding path ahead. If you remember even one of them, let it be this. Your life doesn't shrink as you age. Your focus sharpens. You don't lose time. You just stop wasting it. You've earned the right to rest without guilt, to laugh without permission, and to say no with a full heart. You've carried others. Now carry peace. You've sacrificed. Now savor. And if anyone says you're too old to change, remind them that compost is just transformation after a long, messy journey. Buddhism teaches us that freedom comes not from adding more, but from letting go. So let go of being useful. Let go of being understood. Let go of being impressive. Be kind. Be ridiculous. Be present. And above all, don't wait for permission for a better mood or for the right time. The right time is now. The next breath. The crooked smile. The moment you put on your favorite socks just because they make you laugh. Thank you for staying with me through this sacred, slightly inappropriate conversation. If something here made you smile, exhale, or reconsider a lifelong habit, then this hour wasn't wasted. Share it with someone you love or someone you're still learning to forgive. And remember, aging isn't the end, it's the reveal. And you, my friend, are finally becoming the masterpiece.